Travis Wayne Goodsell, living the high life as a retired person. If I wasn't retired, I'd do a video segment, the Bill Maher video segment from last night's episode, and change the new rules that he did on emotional truth to spiritual truth, because we're talking about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints when I wasn't retired, and how Mormons do that. They purposely lie but claim spiritual truth. And so the Book of Mormons purposely lie about the interpretation of the Book of Mormon, claiming spiritual truth. They read Learning of the Jews and say, oh, Jesus, Christian. Moroni chapter 10, verse 3 through 5. I don't see manifest there. It's spiritual witness. I have self-confirmed my own self-confirmation. And so, yeah, it's a very dangerous thing to do that, because you're not only creating your own fantasy world, but you're enforcing that upon other people to believe you, or you're going to murder them. You're going to hurt them in some way. You're going to punish them. And so we're seeing that as Mormons will defend the church, and Ballard is the more recent one that this has happened with, that they attack who's ever exposing that a prophet of the living Jesus is exposed for lying or whatever scandal. And Mormons will come to his aid by attacking the person who's making the claim. Hey, I've got the documents. Here's the video. Here's the website that he approved, and blah, blah, blah. But the women are suing him for spiritual manipulation. It's just stupid. That should be kicked out of the courts. But they're doing it to protect the church, because people get triggered with these kinds of stunts. And so the populace, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, just as long as you can get other Mormons to go, oh, whew, the church is safe. 60 minutes. Mormons just go silent and hope it goes away. But this particular instance, Mormons actually attack the regular person. They can't attack 60 minutes. It's difficult to do that. Or Vice, or the Australian press, or the Canadian news. Which is sad, because the news is not supposed to be a megaphone. This is what he talked about in his overtime segment for CNN that was also available on YouTube for us to watch. He's saying that the press is not supposed to be the megaphone for the government. They're supposed to be a check and balance to investigate and report the crimes and the problems that our government is causing. And that way it holds them to the fire to do their job. But because the press isn't doing that, it's allowed Congress to not do their job. But it's the same with the church. In the state of Utah, the press will not investigate the church. Even though Fox 13 News Utah has the Fox investigates the church. No, they don't. It's because of what the church purposely released for the press to read over the anchored positions. And they call it an investigation. But this is why the church is able to get away with so much and do so much damage to our government and businesses and our personal lives in the state of Utah, is because the press has been silenced by the church. They are the megaphone for the church. And you see that with ABC4 News Utah. When I was not retired, I would point out that fact from the news, that it was kind of disturbing. It's like ABC4 News was so desperate for something for their show that they went to the church news and reported what the church news was telling us. That's not what the news is for. You know, if there's crime going on, you report the crime. But I remember back in the 70s and 80s that there was a big to-do by Mormon, or not Mormon, regular housewives and elderly people who were upset with the violence and the corruption and crime being reported on the news. Yeah, but they wanted more of grandma's recipes and other stuff like that. And so that's what you see now on the local news, especially. And ABC4 News Utah, that's what you see. They see all these advertisements on their news channel on YouTube. It's just absurd. But yeah, KUTV2 and KSL5 also cover the church news. And it's sad. They will not investigate the church. And there's so much to investigate because the church has been getting away with crimes for decades. I could easily stay unretired for decades, the rest of my life. But nope. Chose not to. And so this has to do with the Book of Mormon, of course. As I guess we gotta also cover a porn thing. Because the spiritual truth, Nelson pulled that stunt in his latest conference video, in which he declared that pornography is addictive. And the church has been calling it evil and addictive for years. This is a psychological manipulation. And not only was he trying to counteract the Natasha Helfer effect, as I'll call it, but also to ignore the scandal earlier this year about banning porn sites, forcing Utahns to sign in, and which was overturned by a Texas judge. But I don't think Utah even cared. They're probably still doing the ban. But they do their own thing here in Utah, and that's a problem, and the press won't investigate. But there was a guy who was fed up with the MAGA book banning throughout the nation, and even in Utah, making laws to ban books. And so he took advantage of that to make a point and filed a petition with the Davies County School District to ban the Bible from the schools, the school libraries. And because, yeah, the Bible is a violation of the law of Utah that was established, the Davies County School Commission or whatever was forced to ban the Bible. And of course that went national. Utahns in the news again for being dumb. And it wasn't until somebody retaliated by filing a ban on the Book of Mormon that now all of a sudden the legislature got involved. Oh crap. The Book of Mormon is born. And yes, he wasn't covering the porn that I was covering. There's far worse. Because if you actually read through your Book of Mormon and you use Christian interpretation, yeah, there's a whole bunch of abominations in there. Even about Jesus. And so they then reversed it all. And then, of course, go into hiding and hope it goes away. And so here comes Nelson. Pulpit of Conference. Says porn is addictive. It's harmful. As if the Bible and the Book of Mormon are not to be classified as such. He won't come out and state it. And during that whole porn crisis, they were purposely advertising on the church news about how little kids should be immersed in the Bible. It's just, the church just doesn't care. They're just throwing things out there to force compliance, knowing of what will happen from it, but not caring. They'll just victim blame you, regardless of how you treat it, and whether you embrace porn or whether you go to the extreme of banning things that aren't porn. And pornography, as a word, was created by evangelicals in the turn of the 1900s. You know, they failed to overthrow the government by getting creation taught in schools. And so they then decided to go on an idolatry kick if they can't force everybody to learn their interpretation of the Bible. Everything idol worship. And yes, pictures of women was one of those. And I think home videos began. It was silent pictures originally. Can't remember when they started. But anyway. And so, yeah, this concept of spiritual truth to force other people to accept your lie is a very dangerous thing. And that's what we're dealing with now in what I am now deeming the second chapter. If you've been following, because you need to follow, you can't just walk in at any point in time and go, oh, I know exactly what he's talking about. You don't. This is exclusive information that I'm giving you. I am the foremost anthropologist of the ancient Middle East. And when the Book of Mormon says it's in the learning of the Jews, you kind of need to know that. And so because the church has deceived you into thinking it's Christian about Jesus, you have no clue what the Book of Mormon is telling you. And so you're not going to be able to figure things out. You've got to go to the beginning of my playlist, and I've set up the home page to have the playlist right there at the top for you, making it as easy as possible for you. And of course my audience is going, because I'm not talking about porn or spiritual truth or any of my regular videos that I would be doing when I was not retired. And so you're not going to understand 2017 Nephi is born. You have no clue what I'm talking about because you haven't been following me. And you have to watch to the end of the videos because we're going over the whole Book of Mormon. And so even though I have introductions that can take up to 5 hours long until I finally get to the scripture, you do have to pay attention. This is kind of important. Because if Nelson is lying and deceiving you, that says a whole lot more. It's a danger for a religious leader to be lying to you, claiming spiritual truth. It's where extremism happens. And we're witnessing that this spiritual truth movement by the church is seeking to overthrow the government. This is beyond criminal. This is seditious conspiracy. This is even beyond RICO that the church is involved with, which the SEC finally did something against the church, but only because of the whistleblower for Ensign Peak Advisors. If the SEC actually investigated the whole church, went through their whole financial records, the church would be fined multiple times for each and every single violation that they're doing. And we're talking at least over 50 different organizations that are violating the law in the same manner that Ensign Peak Advisors does, because they do the same pattern for every source of income. And so the church is still continuing to commit SEC violations, just not with the tithing one anymore. Because the SEC didn't clamp down on them for the others. And this is what Mormons and even critics don't catch on to. The church is far worse than critics tell us. You're not listening to me. This is not my spiritual truth. I have the documents. I have the financial receipts. I lived the experience. It happened. And yet my brother was ordered by the church to come get me. Oh, dear God, what a humiliating... Seriously, Todd, you are the younger brother for a reason. And not for the same reason that Nephi is, but I know he thought of himself as Nephi. Nope, that's my new name, not yours. And so Nephi is starting out here. He's finished with the abridgment of his father. And now he's been born in the first year of the reign of King Zedekiah, which, yes, comes from Revelation chapter 12, that Lehi vision. I shouldn't have to be repeating this for people who refuse to watch my videos. And so this is where we're at here. And so he's now showing Mormons how the Christ is supposed to do things, so that Mormons would hearken to the Christ, who is a Mormon. Remember, I shouldn't have to keep repeating things. 103:16, Doctrine and Covenants. And so, yes, not only is the prophecy of his new temple name given, but also he's large in stature. Prophecies, it happened. Fulfilled. But if you think this is literal history, you missed that. You're supposed to be looking for him right now, back in 2017. And the Book of Mormon is prophesying about who he is and what he looks like even here. Large in stature. And so, he's one who has great desires to know the Jewish mysteries of God. So you're looking for somebody who's talking to you about the Book of Mormon in the learning of the Jews. That's who you're looking for. And apparently he's an exclusive person who's the only one talking about it on YouTube. You're supposed to be looking for him. I hope you can find him. And so, it says here that he was visited by the Lord through dreams. And yes, indeedly do. Prophecy fulfilled again. Because that comes from Numbers. 12:6, in which Aaron and Miriam are attempting a coup on Moses. And so the Lord comes and says, I will make myself known unto my choice of prophet through visions and dreams. And that's why Joseph Smith did his visionary accounts, to correspond and conform to the Deuteronomy or the Numbers passage, which is the Torah of the Jews, the canon, the authority. And so he therefore is able to learn from the Book of Mormon of the learning of the Jews, so that he can then explain it to you as Mormons and ex-Mormons, because you too need to be saved from the church. You've left the church, good for you, but the church never lets you go. They will destroy you, just like they'll destroy the whole United States to get their kingdom back. And so leaving the church is insufficient. And I don't think you're taking that seriously enough. You think that you're out of the church, you're fine now. No, all is not well in Utah or anywhere else in the world. Even though you don't call it Zion anymore. And so he doesn't rebel against the words of Joseph Smith that we'll put in here for Lehi in this particular interpretation, because Lehi is the one telling his offspring about religion, about the Messiah, about such and such. So, just as I told you, Joseph Smith Sr. also fits this category here. He's the one telling Junior all about the church. And even though his other children didn't rebel, Junior was the one that was purposely being groomed to be the leader of the church, knowing the risks that would come from it. But he was the master mason in Canandaigua. And so multiple understandings come from this. Don't narrow your interpretation to just one and only one, trying to establish spiritual truth. And so it's a matter of, as Mormons, we are required to study the scriptures. We're supposed to study the words of Joseph Smith. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints claims Joseph Smith is our founder. And so thus we're supposed to do that. But when you see learning of the Jews, are you rebellious and say Jesus Christianity? Or are you softening your heart to believe that it's the learning of the Jews? And then, according to Alma, chapter 32, starting in verse 28, proceed with the process of your belief to physically manifest the results of the learning of the Jews' interpretation of the Book of Mormon, so that you will know when the latter days are and who your Christ is. That's what comes to mind here with the spiritual truth of replacing emotional truth of Bill Maher. And so, yeah, there's others. That's Sam here. He believes also that the Lord had manifested unto me by his Holy Spirit. If it's a spiritual witness, it's not manifested. Don't change the definition. You become the evil one. And so, yeah, you see the parable of the 10 virgins, of those who believe and those who don't believe. And the ones who don't believe are the ones that are symbolically not getting their own oil for the lamps and the reserve oil that's necessary to keep them lit. And this is why we end up getting into the Tree of Life a little later on here, which is Jewish Kabbalah. And then you have the Lord talking to Nephi, who is the Lord. And saying, because of your faith, for seeking diligently to know the Jewish Christ, he is he's chosen to be the man like Moses, and shall be led to a land of promise. That's the Exodus thing. Deuteronomy 18, remember? I can't keep repeating everything because you didn't bother to keep watching the videos. It's the learning of the Jews. And so it's the Exodus pattern that you're seeing here. This is his burning bush, or fire on the rock of Lehi. This is Nephi's version of this now. He's in Utah. It's the start of the ministry because he's been born. Born in Utah, but not born the start of his ministry. Shouldn't have to keep repeating this. And so this is Zion that's being talked about here, New Jerusalem. And there's cut off. Joseph Smith History 140, which is in the Book of Mormon, which is not in Acts. The Book of Mormon is 3 Nephi 2023. And so the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith History use cut off, whereas Acts says destroyed. Shouldn't have to keep repeating this. But this is what they're saying here, is that he now adds cut off from the presence of the Lord. Which, how were they cut off from the presence of the Lord? Well, as we learn later on, Laman and Lemuel sought to murder Nephi after the death of Lehi, and so Nephi fled, established his own kingdom. The kingdom of Nephi, with the Temple of Solomon that was built, and the Promised Land. And so Laman and Lemuel were cut off from the presence of Nephi, the Christ of the latter days. So Mormons who don't leave Utah with the Christ to Zion, even after destruction, you're cutting yourself off. When you refuse to watch his YouTube channel, when he's warning you about the learning of the Jews and the threat of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you are cutting him off. You are cutting yourself off from him. When you make a hate comment, and he has to ban you for your hate comment, because he can't allow hate comments on his YouTube channel, you are cutting yourself off from his presence because you don't believe him. You rebel, you mock, you scorn, you look to find fault with him, using your Christian bias to judge him with. And you don't get it. And you seek to use spiritual truth lies to find fault with him. And so, yeah, he's talking about how he'll become the Christ a ruler and a teacher over thy brethren. But they wanted nothing to do with it. They were cut off. And so he wasn't a ruler and teacher over Laman and Lemuel. They still got to be the birthright blessing son to have their own kingdom. And that wasn't good enough for them. And then here's the curse, solar curse. So obviously it's literal history, so this is racist, and we should ban the book, right? Burn it. No, guys. They are using white supremacy here on purpose because it's white supremacists who are racist. And so when they go and attack black people with a cross burning of the KKK, if they're not wearing the hoods, they'll paint their faces black. The mob that murdered Joseph Smith, blackface, painted themselves black to hide their identity. This is the evil of white supremacy. This is why it's in the Book of Mormon this way. Because the Book of Mormon will be read by white supremacists. They're going to read this. And they're going to go, oh, oops, I'm a racist. I should be a good person and not be a racist. Because I don't want my DNA to have black in it. Which, the prophecy is that the Christ of Mormons will be a white guy, but will have black descendant or black ancestors in his line as well. And so only through Christian interpretation is this screwed up. That this anti-white supremacy in the Book of Mormon is screwed up to now be racist. How messed up is that? That's the evils of Christianity, is turning prophecy into literal history. And using that literal history falsehood to justify being corrupt and evil. And so, yeah, this is a situation that is not going to exist in Zion because they're going to be cut off. But this talks about the growing process, the tares looking like the wheat until the final judgment day of the latter days. And so this is what it's referring to here, is Brigham Young forming the great and abominable church and separating themselves from the church of Joseph Smith and heading to this valley. That the converts, you can't tell if they're evil, embracing the lies of Brigham Young's Christianity, versus who are going to recognize, oh, learning of the Jews, I need to learn more about this. You have to wait until you develop over time studying your scriptures, or refusing to study your scriptures, thinking you know everything by having gone and participated in Mormonism. And so this is what it's referring to here, is cut off is at the final judgment. But until then, it's a matter of hearkening to your Christ and learning of the Jews to make your choice. There's only two choices, just like there's only two churches that we get into later. It's either the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or it's the Church of Son Amen, Emmanuel. Church of the Lamb. And Mormons, as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, give spiritual truth that they're in the Church of the Lamb. That despite the inverted pentagram on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple, despite Nelson meaning Lucifer, little star, or red star, that's Lucifer, Mars, the husband of Venus, represented in Isaiah and in the Book of Mormon, which by doing that, he's prophesying, using Isaiah and the Latin Vulgate text to prophesy to Mormons of the actual names of the two characters. So, yeah, this choose ye this day, and Mormons have chosen. That's why I'm retired. Mormons refuse to believe. And it's not just a matter of listening to my videos, but you're actually supposed to be inspired to prepare for the day that you'll burn as an oven. You were supposed to, most of you are now new, and so you missed the Exodus in 2020. But, yeah. That's it. A short one today.